All right, let's jump right into the big ideas from a really fantastic book by Morgan Housel called The Psychology of Money. The whole point of it is this. Our relationship with money, it's got almost nothing to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you act.
So Housel kicks things off with this incredible kind of puzzling story that just flips everything we think we know about getting rich on its head. It's a tale of two guys, and where they ended up financially is something you would just never, ever guess.
Okay, so on one hand, you've got Ronald Reed. This guy was a janitor and a gas station attendant. For decades, he just quietly saved what little money he made, put it into good, solid blue-chip stocks, and then he just waited. That's it. Now, on the other hand, you have Richard Fusconi. Totally different story. Harvard MBA, big shot executive at Merrill Lynch. This guy was living large. He borrowed tons of money for this massive 18,000 square foot mansion. And then, well, the 2008 financial crisis came along and poof, he lost everything.
And this crazy contrast, right? It gets right to the heart of the book's main idea. See, managing your money isn't like physics. It's not about hard rules and complicated formulas. Nope, it's a soft skill, the way you behave. Things like your patience, or your greed, or even your humility. That stuff is way, way more important for your success than how good you are with a spreadsheet.
So, you might be asking, why is behavior the big thing? Well, it's because how we see the world of money is shaped by our own, totally unique experiences. Something that seems completely normal and logical to you could look absolutely crazy to the next person.
I mean, just think about the stock market for a second. Your whole attitude towards it probably has a lot to do with what it was doing when you were young. When you were forming all your ideas about the world. If you came of age when the market was just soaring, you're probably going to see stocks as this amazing opportunity. But if you grew up when the market was flat, doing nothing, you're going to be way more suspicious, right?
And it's the exact same thing with something like inflation. If you're old enough to remember prices just shooting through the roof, that fear gets baked right into your financial DNA. But if you've only ever known prices to be pretty stable, inflation is just some boring idea from an economics textbook. The point is, your personal history creates your own financial reality, and that reality can be completely different from your neighbor's.
But okay, it's not all just about what's going on in our own heads. We've also got to talk about two massive forces that we usually forget about, and those are luck and its twin brother, risk.
Just look at Bill Gates. Now, obviously, the guy was brilliant, super driven, no question about it. But he also had an insane stroke of luck. The high school he went to, Lakeside, it was one of the only high schools in the entire world that had a computer all the way back in 1968.
Think about that. The odds of a teenager going to a school like that back then, it was literally 1 in a million. That gave him a head start that was so huge, so unbelievable, and almost completely out of his control.
But here's where luck's sibling, risk, comes into the picture. Bill's best friend, a guy named Kent Evans, was his partner in crime. He was just as smart, just as ambitious. They were the dynamic duo, They were supposed to take on the world together.
But Kent, he ran into the brutal, ugly side of risk. The odds of him dying in a freak mountaineering accident before he even graduated, also about 1 in a million. And that's the key. Luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. They're the same powerful force, just pointing in opposite directions.
All right, this leads us to a really common trap, a behavioral pitfall that gets everybody, from folks in the middle class all the way up to the super rich. And that's the problem of the moving goalpost, the idea of never enough. The author, Joseph Heller, the guy who wrote Catch-22, told this perfect story about it once. He was at a party hosted by a billionaire. And he pointed out that, yeah, this billionaire might have made more money in a single day than Heller's famous book made in its entire lifetime. But Heller said, I have something he will never have, enough.
Just look at the case of Raja Gupta. This guy's net worth was around $100 million. He had this incredible story, came from poverty in India, climbed to the very, very top of the corporate world. I mean, he had more money than any person could ever need or spend. And yet, he threw it all away. He risked his freedom, his reputation, everything by committing insider trading, just to get more. So here's the lesson, right? When your desire for more keeps growing faster than your sense of satisfaction, you start risking things you have and need for things you don't have and don't need. The absolute hardest financial skill to learn is how to get the goalposts to stop moving.
So we've talked about all this psychology stuff, but what's the most powerful tool we actually have to build wealth? You might be surprised by the answer. It's not some secret stock tip.
The book has this brilliant analogy to explain the power of compounding. It's like an ice age.
See, an ice age doesn't kick off with some giant epic blizzard. No, it starts when you have a summer that's just a little bit too cool so last winter's snow doesn't completely melt. That little leftover layer of snow makes it easier for the next winter's snow to stick around. And that cycle just keeps building on itself, over and over.
Want to see this in action? Let's talk about Warren Buffett. His net worth is something like $85 billion. But get this, a mind-blowing $81.5 billion of that was earned after his 65th birthday, after he qualified for Social Security.
I mean, that just illustrates the point perfectly. Look, is Warren Buffett a brilliant investor? Absolutely. But his secret, his real superpower? It's time. He started investing when he was just a kid, and he never stopped. Most of his fortune wasn't about being a genius. It was about the slow, steady, unstoppable power of compounding.
So, at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway from all of this is that we need to completely change how we think about money. Financial success isn't about memorizing complex formulas or having some kind of genius insight that no one else has. It's about mastering our own behavior. It's about knowing our own biases, accepting the huge roles that luck and risk play, and maybe most importantly of all, giving our money the one ingredient it needs to grow into something incredible. And that's just time.